Hello, madame. How are you feeling? And I know you're going to tell me you've got a cold because everybody I know has a cold, except for
It's
me.
it,
I've got other serious personal problems, but not a cold.
well, yeah. Well, it's typical. It's January, let's say, it's February. Like it's weird because I'm a hermit. I live alone. I don't know how I got it. It was the immaculate infection.
An immaculate infection. Okay.
Yes, like Gabriel.
You know what would be
Yes.
good for that? Some gin.
Oh yeah, a nice gin and tonic with some cucumber. And for that purpose, I have one of the foremost experts of spirits joining us this morning. Um, when I was I think it was my last year at CGAD in 2019, Dan Laxer and I were hosting a show called Montreal Eats. And I didn't want it to be like, okay, now we're going to explain a cookie recipe. And I wanted to really focus on, Montreal specialties of food, alcohol, desserts. And I had met this young man before. He was doing a a Tom Cruise in cocktail, but doing a display of making cocktails, and turned out that he was working for Cirka, which is Montreal's first ever. He'll explain this. I think it's like distillery to bottle. Circa is incredible. Paul and Victoria Circa, who own it, are Ukrainian, and therefore they've done quite a bit to help Ukraine, but also other communities too. And Gizmo Sirois he's got flair. He's kind of like a circus performer. He's a master cocktail mixer. And it's a performance art when you watch him put these things together. I'd like to call him the Baron of Beverages. And with that, let me please introduce you to
Okay,
Monsieur Gizmo Sirois.
one person, two names here. Paul
Yes.
Circa is his name, and
No,
Gizmo Sirois.
no. Gizmo Sirois is the mixologist, and
Yes.
Paul Circa and his daughter Victoria are the owners of Circa.
Okay, and Gizmo is his stage name.
No, Gizmo,
No,
that's his real name. He's not
that's his
related.
wrist.
He's not
Somebody,
related to the
somebody
family.
named this guy Gizmo.
I
Yeah,
know.
that happened. That happened.
Okay,
The
let's
fun part is
start.
now I'm the only one in my business.
I'm
Like I like to say,
confused.
each time I meet somebody with whom I share my names, 99% of the time it's a cat or a dog. So
Okay, well,
I
let's
only
start
remember
with.
Gizmo from Bugs Bunny. Remember the space alien? I
no,
am
no, no,
going to
no. That was
discombobulate
Kazoo.
you.
That was
Oh,
Kazoo.
kazoo. Okay.
Kazoo and the Flintstones. No, Gizmo was from the Gremlins, apparently. Yeah,
Okay.
was
Okay,
the lovely
so
little Mogwai.
we're 30 seconds in and we've lost control already. Um, all right, please explain to me the difference between Gizmo Sirois and Paul Circa.
Well, Paul Circa is the owner of Circa Distilleries,
Okay,
and I am the brand ambassador. So I hopped on board with the company. They were founded in 2016, and
okay,
I hopped on board with them in 2021.
okay.
2021, but yeah, before that, like I'd carry their products when I used to work for the other brands because I'd bring that, say in
Hmm.
Europe or whatever, representing 100% Quebec made product.
Okay.
Yeah.
And qui t'a nommé Gizmo? Ton père?
No, no, no. My dad's a francophone. My mom was Irish Acadian. So my granddad was an Irishman. My grandma was an Acadian lady, and typically from those years they had 17 kids in Ireland, and then they moved to Halifax, Nova Scotia, where my mom grew up, right? And being Irish, she was very, religious, Catholic, born and raised. And both my brothers were born Michael and John. And when they got baptized here in Quebec, the tradition used to be when you were baptized, automatically in Quebec, as French Canadians, a guy would have Joseph in
Right.
his name and
Yep.
marry for a woman, right?
Right.
And that's not something that was observed in Ireland. So my mom was kind of pissed off at the French Canadian clergy for that, and she said, Joseph is not in their names, but they said, well, you have no choice. We're going to put it down anyway. And then they baptized my brothers with a French name. So John became Joseph Jean, and Michael became Joseph Michel. So when I popped up about 11, 12 years later, she said, I'll give him a name which they cannot, switch around and play. So I was born Raymond Edward Dennis Gizmo. So, and she said, I
Wow.
don't want the Joseph in there. And they said, oh, we don't observe that anymore. So there you go.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Era, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure that I'm on the right map
Yes.
here.
Well, I
So,
actually before I met Gizmo, I met Paul in Victoria. There was some West Island entrepreneurship like display, and with when you get reporters around free alcohol, good things happen.
Yeah.
And they introduced a brand to me, and it really is. It's very cool. It's very modern. I had met Gizmo before when he was representing another brand, and that's when I had him in studio. And I got to tell you that episode of Montreal Eats was one of the more lively.
well, you were connected with Ungava at one point, were you not, Gizmo?
Yes, I was. I
Okay.
was.
Okay.
And
I'm
I
mentioning it
became.
only. I know it's a competing product now, but I mention it only because I was never much of a gin fan until I tried Ungava. It is an exceptional product in its own
Yes, it
right.
is. Well, Ungava are pretty much the trailblazers in Quebec for what we called micro distilling, right? So they came about in 2011, and if you go back in those days, to own a still in Quebec, which you need to make spirits, you had to be a orchard owner, so either apples or pears and stuff
Oh,
like that. So that's when Michel Jaudoin became a very important player here in Quebec, and hence still to this day he'll co-pack some products like Romeo's Gin and Pure Vodka. But when you start scratching, you understand that there's a lot of distillers in Quebec, but 98 I think it's something like around 98% of those are not 100% locally made. So they're buying alcohol out of Ontario, and then, bottles come from China, and then they start adding, coloring and stuff. It doesn't mean that the product is not good per se, but when we start pulling on the consumer's heartstrings, making them believe that they're buying 100% local, that kind of hurts inside because who falls to the ground and can't survive those realities are unfortunately the 100% local producers, the ones that we like to use in our job, the expression grain to bottle. So you're working
okay.
hand to
That's what I was going to
glass.
get to. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, see, like we say in French, c'est du grain à la bouteille ou du grain au
Wait.
verre, right? So
Yep.
grain to
Yep.
bottle. It's grain that's grown in Quebec by landowners. The grain is then distilled 100% by the distillers who own the stills. They do the job, and then they work with foragers and they bring terroir botanicals, and they start. And Ungava came from that idea, but being a business model, a very young business model, they had to make choices where they bought the alcohol out of Ontario. And
Okay.
then, you remember Gin World used to be commercialized by the color of the bottle because gin is a clear spirit, right? So you
Hmm.
had Bombay with the blue bottle, and you had Tanqueray with the
With
green
the green.
bottle, blah,
Yep.
blah.
Yep.
And Ungava said, how about we come out with a colored gin? Therefore, even what's in the glass, you still know what they're drinking, which is a brilliant idea if you come to think about it. But so they came about with that story of using, northern Ungava area botanicals. But again, spirit. I love my job in the spirits industry, but what the people listening to this today need to understand that it's the whole thing is about storytelling, right? So we want to engage the consumers in something, but sometimes these little white lies become bigger and bigger corporative lies, and it's kind of hard to follow up for consumers on that point. And being privileged of having worked with Japanese distillers and Irish distillers and Scottish and Italian and French. And you understand quickly that within those areas in the world, there's laws that protect the producers. And here we're doing business in a North American way. And again, I want to underline this. It does not mean that when you're buying something that's just bottled in Quebec, it's a bad product. But reality is the all the people participating in the products are not necessarily local. and that's where it hurts our business in the long run.
Okay.
If you were a winemaker in France, you are totally allowed to cut a very good deal on Chilean or Argentinian wine and have it transferred to France in a boat and you bring it there. But if you bottle it in France, laws will you cannot say it's a French wine, or else you'll lose your license, okay? But that's what we're doing here in North America. So right now, in the reality of everything that's Quebecois made on the shelves of the SAQ, unfortunately, 1.5 to 2% of those are actually 100% made from Quebec products.
2%. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So tell me about how, because I have to admit that like circa I love gin. I didn't really like gin, and then I went to England and I found a gin shop.
Yeah.
I spent several sodden afternoons. Tell me about the process for making your like from whiskey to gin to
Well,
vodka, kayak vodka.
those are two different categories. Each spirit has their laws that works within, right? Where they have, different laws that they need to observe to be categorized as either a tequila or a vodka or whatever it is. And even within those laws, they can change from a country to another, right? So,
Right,
so making gin is essentially you will need a grain-based alcohol where you will have an infusion of different botanicals. The main one being juniper berry, okay? Juniper in French is Genièvre. In
Mhm.
Latin, it's Geneva, gin. That's where the word comes from, okay?
huh.
So making gin is a mixture of botanicals, and they had this weird thought back in the day where this came about. I think it was with Dutch monks that came with the Geneva alcohol, and it kind of evoluted to become some gin. So
Yep.
essentially, gin is yeah, it's just a botanical based spirit, and then you have like a classic London dry gin, which is something that we know. This is another recipe where you need to have these different botanicals in there. And like most gins in Quebec right now, or most gins generally speaking, will be made from what we call a compound gin. So you're buying alcohol that's already infused with botanicals, and then you just add your simple touch to it and you bottle it as your gin.
My maternal grandfather used to drink De Kuyper gin,
The Kuiper. The Kuiper is a
which,
huge brand specifically in Quebec.
oh, yeah.
Still to this day, it was being drank by most families from a traditional point of view because the Kuiper was drank by both fishermen and hunters, and they would keep the heat going when they're waiting outside like that. And the funny part of it is it used to be sold in large quantities, not for the quality of the spirit, but because the bottle was kind of a plastic fifth, if they could
Oh,
slip in
yes.
the
No, no, there
pocket.
was a
And
joke
if you
about
dropped it on
it.
the ground, it was plastic, so it
Yeah.
wouldn't break.
It was paint remover. There was a joke in there somewhere, too, about
Yeah, yeah. Well,
the
people said
Kuyper
it,
gin.
but oddly enough, it was, I don't think it was when it came out first, I don't think it was at 40% alcohol. And if you take for like Ungava gin is at 40%. If you
Right.
take Circa gin is at 44%, right? And again, it's softer on the palate, but then that comes from how you're distilling your spirit and pulling the quality of the ethanol. So it's not as harsh on the palate.
How did you become a mixologist?
By passion, I guess. I've worked with people all my life. Either from an artistic point of view, teaching. I worked the streets with sex workers and junkies, and I was like always with people, okay, but in different levels of society and for different reasons. And it just came naturally to me around 15 years old to be a back bar. Like I wasn't even legal in a bar, but I was still interested in learning about this. And quickly enough, I started understanding how they make spirits, how these beautiful stories can be told and bring people together at your bar. It goes beyond just sharing a drink. It's about how about we go for that classic song by what's his name, Billy Joel, right? They're sharing a drink they call loneliness, but it's better than drinking alone. And it's all about the word that I like to define myself with now today is convivialité.
Hmm.
right? It's all about bringing people together. So, so I became a mixologist through the years because I was 19 years old when I started creating uh, cocktails, like from exploring different spirits and infusing some stuff and making some stuff, and then you start, oh, this is cool. I like to tell people that mixology is essentially cooking with liquids. So you need to
Hmm.
explore that, and it's sure, you can just make boiled potatoes, but you can also throw in some salt and spices and cream and cheese, and suddenly that potato evolves to something even, more tasty on the palate. So spirits go in the same manner. So I just, through the years, I started bartending, you know, start you start bar back and then you become bartender and bar manager and you train people and you're even if you're young, they quickly see that you know what you're talking about, right? So essentially big brands stop at your bar and they say, oh, we like this kid, so we're going to hire him because we love how he's passionate, he understands, and he can talk about it. And then you start moving through the years, and mixology is just a tool within the entirety of my job, which is speaking about spirits, master classes, training bar and restaurant people, creating menus, and again, about people coming
All
together.
self-taught as well.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. Well, after like I was privileged enough to meet very qualified people throughout the years, so you learn because I mean you spend weeks and months and years with these people and you learn even more so. And a few classes here and there where you have a sit down with people who are going to teach you wine or teach you whiskey or teach you brandies of some sort and how we make vodka here and blah blah blah. So yeah, I didn't go to a certain school. I went to the life school of spirits, bouncing in and off here and there and learning about stuff and
Oh, we have some shots
creating.
here. I'm sorry, Era. Go ahead.
Sure. Oh no, I was just going to say, after Gizmo and I met, I was teaching at Champlain College, and we were having a techie evening. And so Gizmo brought his rolling bar, which is quite spectacular. And it was interesting because there were supposed to be other displays about tech going on, but the entire room, it's like you couldn't even see Gizmo because but it was fun because you do put on a show and
Yeah.
you make it exciting.
Well, it is, right? It's the same thing as cooking. Again, I bring that up because we can all cook, but the pleasure of paying for a great restaurant, seeing the chef, like when I go in a restaurant, I'll never be sitting at a table. My friends got mad at me 2 weeks ago when I said, guys, I don't like going to the restaurant with 6 or 8 of you guys. Don't get me wrong. I prefer cooking and enjoying that meal with you guys around my own table. When I go in a high-end restaurant, I want to meet the people. I want to meet the artisans of what they're doing. And I find that the best way is either going with a good buddy or your girlfriend and sharing that moment, or your son, whatever it is, and you're sitting at the bar. You get a straight contact with the people. You see them work, you see them create, and you see the kitchen in the background, and you explore and you ask them, what should I be trying? Which is much more interesting than, oh, I'll look at the menu and I know that, oh, I don't like fish, so I won't try the fish. You should ask them, is it really fish forward, even if it's a fish plate? Well, actually, no, there's this and this that comes in action, and then it's suddenly interesting. So, I mean, yeah, it is a show. It is a show. Like I told you guys, I had a career as a singer-songwriter. I was an actor for a while, and being a teacher is a show. You have to be interesting for your students. You have to keep them, alive and on their heels and make sure. So the same goes for creating, making, and sharing a drink with people. And they're like, "Holy crap, this is so cool. I didn't expect this," right? And then I do a tasting in an SAQ. We all went to an SAQ and we walked in and we see this little lady or this little man. You want to try my wine? Yeah. And you don't really care about it, right? You'll sip it maybe and you're nice to that person, say, oh, this is nice wine. And then you just walk away and buy whatever you came to buy.
Mm.
I can't stand that. So when I am in an SAQ, I tell the people, you're going to have people at my bar for 10, 15, 20 minutes, and I'm going to create drinks and go beyond brand and give recipes and a shout out to how you can create this and this and that. And then people are really enjoying it. Next thing you know, they came in the SAQ to buy a bottle of wine. They're texting their girlfriends or their boyfriends saying, "Sorry, honey, I'm late because this thing is happening at the SAQ. It's so cool." And they meet other clients and they're cheering together and stuff and that again is a show, but the show is inviting everybody to participate and discover it and be kids about it and have fun around.
These folks are these are the
Oh.
circus.
Yes, this is Paul Circa and Isabelle Rochette, who's a sommelier by trade, but she became uh, pretty much the first woman to distill in Quebec. And Circa are the pioneers in Quebec from grain to bottle distillation. When they started their business models, a lot of people are like, "Holy crap, these guys are going to crash, right?"
Hmm.
Because it's more expensive to do. It's you have to be really devoted to the fact that you want to work with local producers and stuff. And that's what I always loved about Circa, even when I didn't work with them. Even when I worked with Ungava, I'd bring Circa gin in France, and people were like, "Why? You're representing this other company." But I said, "Yeah, but Ungava's a great gin. I love it. But if you want something all about Quebec, this is it." So, and that's what I love about Circa. And
And they
I
have
heard
quite a.
Sarah
Um,
talk about Victoria. Victoria was our marketing director, but she's not Paul's daughter. She's also
Oh.
Ukrainian, but she's not
Okay.
Paul's daughter. Victoria Slotky, actually.
Okay.
And she's got now two children, and she moved on to
Yes.
new challenges. She's still tied to us. We still communicate on a regular basis, but yeah, we're still a six people team. But unfortunately, we lost our little mom there in Victoria. But we're working in a different matter right now, and we're still six people at Circa. Each of us are multitasking as much as possible, and yeah,
Quite a
it's a
few
small
products
distillery.
too at Circa, which is it's a challenge too, is it not? I mean, it's a huge investment to begin with, is it not?
Yes, totally, totally. And making spirits takes some time, but our main goal at Circa is we like to define ourselves as whiskey make. Now, making whiskey
Is
from
it
a
with that
business,
that those big tall things are for making the whiskey, right?
That's a
the
still.
the
Yeah,
big
yeah.
stills, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
actually, oddly enough, we use the long one to make our vodka. All right.
Ah,
But the smaller one is usually you can use different palettes, okay, levels on your still that you can lock away and stuff. And when you're doing whiskey, it's another process as when you're doing gin. And then there's another still that you guys didn't see on the picture, which is right in front of that main still, which we called Mario, by the way. And we have Homer on the other side, which is our gin still. The gin still is smaller and it's usually a double column with a still because you can also distill the alcohol and then it goes through steam and vapors and you got gin baskets where you get lighter botanicals and it infuses through steam to get more liquid and more tastes out of it. That's the
Wow.
gin process.
Was whiskey the first love for you?
For me personally, yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
For Paul Circa also, Paul was sharing, he was sitting at a bar in London because Paul worked in as a landscape architect and IT mainly. And I don't know, he was looking for a new challenge and he was sitting in London and he asked the bartender, "Can you pour me a quality whiskey of your choice? It doesn't have to be about expensive. It has to be about a good whiskey." And he poured him a Cal Isla, which is a Scottish from the Isle of Isla, which is our kind of peated smoky whiskeys. And it was a 21-year-old, if I recall well, or 18 or 21. And Paul sipped that and said, "This is what I want to do. I want to do whiskey in Quebec." But by law, making whiskey needs that you're going to distill grain alcohol. You can't use potatoes. You can't use, I don't know, beets. It needs to be grain.
Hmm.
So you're using grain, you distill it, and then the magic will operate in a cask where it needs to sit in the cask for a minimum of 3 years and one day before you can sell a single drop of it as whiskey. Unfortunately, even if it has done its 3 years, it doesn't mean to it's up to your standards and your liking. So if it's not good and ready to bottle, you might have to wait 4, 5, 6, 9, 10 years, whatever. But you can't run a business for 10 years and not sell a single drop and bring money to the mill. So that's when you start working with a lot of attention to detail and passion, as much so, but making vodkas and gins and liqueurs that you can bottle quicker, reach the consumer quicker, and then use that tiny, tiny profit that's left to you by the government and invest on a long-term project of making whiskey. So that's pretty much Circa in a nutshell for you right there.
That
One of the
was
things I
lead.
like about, sorry, Van, go ahead.
No, please, dear, go ahead.
Well, no, I was going to say one of the things I have not been to very many distilleries, maybe two or three. I've been to lots of vineries in Italy and France, but what I found fascinating about, well, your building is this big kind of like glass structure, and I guess you're what is are you in Griffintown or Point St. Charles or
That's the weird thing. We're actually right between Verdun, Villemont, St. Henry, Griffintown, right? So essentially it's called Côte Saint-Paul, but
okay,
it's in the industrial area, right on St. Patrick. A lot of people know the McCausland, Saint Ambroise breweries. They have a huge terrace there on the canal.
mm,
Well, right on the south side, we're right across from them, and people see this big brown brick, building with all the glass around it, and you see the casks through it. But we're a small distiller. We what we call a micro distillery because we're not producing high quantities of liquid,
right,
and we're a small team, but we work with the best equipment, 100% Quebec grain that we work hand in hand with landowners, and the grain's brought to the distillery. It has to be to the quality and to our liking. We're totally allowed to send it back, say this is not what we wanted, and they're going to take it back, no questions asked. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and the whole production is essentially managed by two people,
wow,
Isabel and
Hmm.
Charles, who also is a brewer and a very young but talented distiller, very knowledgeable guy. Used to be a sailor, worked in Scotland. I mean, they're very, very talented people, hardworking. But again, I'll bring what I was talking to you guys earlier. The business is all about, client storytelling and integration and making them feel at home. And whiskey making, specifically in Quebec, whiskey drinkers at large are kind of pompous about it. It's like oh, it's an expensive spirit. So a lot of people think that if you buy an 18-year-old whiskey, it's way better than a 10-year-old, which is, excuse my French, but total bullcrap. That's not how whiskey works. It's a more expensive recipe. If you want to cut it down to somebody, say, I use what I call my craft dinner story. If Yvan, you did craft dinner, right? And then Era, she'll do the same craft dinner, but she'll throw in broccoli, sausage, and spicy sauce. And then I come around the corner and I throw in a can of caviar. We all agree that I did the most expensive craft dinner, right? But does that
right.
automatically mean that
Right.
it's the one that
Yeah.
we're going to prefer? No. And that's pretty much age mentioned for you in a certain level where it's a more expensive recipe to do, but it does not at all justify by the price that you're getting a better whiskey. It's a different taste profile. It's a different recipe that costs more to make, takes more time. But yeah, that's one way of looking at it. But there's so many details in whiskey world. And what I love to do is when I'm sitting in front of, I don't know, 150, 200 lawyers and doctors and engineers and people with CEOs and whatever, and they have this collection of I have 50 whiskeys of $800 and above priced bottles and stuff, and I'm like, cool. In my home I have a little over 1,300 bottles of whiskeys. Most of them are malts and blends that were done for me specifically by master distillers signature, and yet I drink them and I don't boast about it because I like shaking the temple and making people understand that If you want to pay a certain price for a bottle, I don't mind, but don't confuse a sales pitch with knowledge, because that's not how it works. But the first thing you know when you work in Ireland and Scotland, and it just rings a bell for everybody. The first thing I was taught when I walked up there, and two things. They can drink my whiskey with orange juice, a shitload of ice, whatever, but as long as they're drinking my whiskey. Because what Irish and Japanese and Scottish and even American whiskey makers will bring forth is never let the truth get in the way of a good story. And that's whiskey making for you. That's the spirits world at large, right? Because everybody's working with passion, trying to do the best thing that they can bottle up. But the story will kind of comfort you in the price that you're paying. And suddenly you're like, oh, but this and this and this. But there's so much information I could shoot by you right now. And whoever's listening today would be like, oh, I thought I knew whiskey, but I'm totally off here. I didn't know this about whiskey.
Some people take it very seriously. I remember
Yeah.
years ago, I tasted Lefroy, I think, for the first time, and I was
Hmm.
sitting with someone who was very serious, and
Yeah.
I said, it tastes like bacon. And he was so upset, he practically left the room. He got up, he was going to leave the room. He was very
Yeah.
upset. I said, what did I say wrong?
Well, you didn't say nothing
Um,
wrong, because that's what I tell everybody. How to define a whiskey's taste, or a brandy, or a cognac, or a Calvados's taste is all about your senses, your history,
it's your
your
palate. Yeah,
exactly. I
yeah.
love it when someone says, you know, take Lafroig, for example. I remember sampling Lafroig with a buddy of mine, and obviously he didn't like it because at first, starting with a whiskey like that is a stupid idea. So when you meet an experienced whiskey drinker who sits down with you and brings you this very complex and smoky and peated and umami filled whiskey, where you're like, holy crap, I was expecting something with a bit caramel and fruit. And that person's right to expect that from whiskey also, right? And my buddy sat down with me and we had Lafroig, exactly Lafroig. It was a 21-year-old Lafroig, and I know he wasn't going to like it that much. I just wanted him to try it out, just to sip out of my glass. And he sniffed it and he looked at me and he said, God, this reminds me of walking at Canadian Tire with my granddad. And I said, man, you are so right. And that's
Rubber.
whiskey drinking for
Yeah,
you.
the
Yeah.
smell
So
of
the
rubber
person that's
cracking.
offended for you not using the right words, I think, is unfortunately somebody that's stuck in the snobby side of
Yeah,
drinking.
yeah. It was.
And
I was quite taken aback, but it was a joke
I
for many
hear you.
years after that. And
I
he
hear
was
you.
as I recall, he was a pastor. He was a Protestant cleric, and very
Okay.
upset. So, to go. Wow, this is a story. This is very, very interesting. I had a question about the SAQ. Are they still an impediment to small businesses like yours?
This is a thin ice to walk on.
Okay.
SAQ is our main partner, right? It's our main partner. We cannot survive without the SAQ. Is the SAQ the best of our buddies? Not all the time.
Hmm.
They will always say that they're applying the laws that come from above them. MEI, which is le ministère de l'économie et de l'innovation, and everybody's trying to PAPAC and RACJ and la Régie des alcools, des courses et des jeux, and everybody's taking their bite off of a bottle. And I mean, we could definitely change laws again to support our local producers, but it's not happening. We
Hmm.
have, I think, something like 419 SAQ stores. If you look at Bombay, Tanqueray, Smirnoff, all these great brands, don't get me wrong, they're distributed everywhere. You walk in, they're perfectly shelved at about 6 to 8 bottles wide. You can find them easily, right? And then you have local producers, which need to pick up a fight to make sure that they're between 70 to 100 stores distributing them. And then they give themselves the right to say, but your product doesn't sell as much. Of course not. Nobody knows about it. You're not
Yeah.
helping me out. And again, the other reality is, Say Gin Sauvage for Circa. I'm going to use Circa products here. It's $51.50. As a consumer standpoint, we can all expect a very high quality gin, which I can vouch for. It is. But again, you compare it to Hendrix, which is $53, but you know about Hendrix. And then Tanqueray, which is a great bottle of gin for $36.
Yeah.
Where it hurts, Yvan, is that the fact that right now our model of business is on that $51.50 bottle of gin, the government's cut is a little under $30. That's
Holy
what they take.
crap.
Then what's left
Jeez.
to as a direct profit to Circa for them to make more spirit and invest, we're talking something around $6 a bottle. Okay. So people are going to say, well, I'd like to support local, but it's so darn expensive. So I'll grab a bottle of Tanqueray occasionally or a bottle of Bombay, which I understand. Again, where it hurts is Bombay and Tanqueray are distributed everywhere. And on that $36, Bombay are raking in something like, I don't know, 17, 19 bucks a profit directly. So you're giving more money to somebody from outside and you're not supporting local producers. So the cut at 50, I think it's now 54.7% of the price you're paying goes to the government. And
Jeez.
yeah, and how about they cut it down to 29%? That will help us survive. We will be more we can compete with these bigger brands. And so that's where I bring my voice in. I try to be not frustrated and bitter about it because if you are, then people start talking about making, bringing back a private market on alcohol. Okay. And I don't believe in that. I think that the model that we have, if it's well run, is a beautiful model because drinking is not something that we need. It's a luxury product. So it's easy for you to sit down with a consumer and say, you know what? I'm going to ask for more taxes on this. But if you're paying that and you know that this money is going through healthcare or education or the quality of the roads that we drive on or whatever it is, then it would be well built. You understand where
Mm-hmm.
I'm going? But
Mm-hmm.
you have hybrid models in BC where they have a bit of private sales and government sales. You go in Alberta, only private. Okay. And we have all these different liquor laws, LCBO, SAQ. They're going to raking a lot of money and they sell larger quantities. SAQ is one of the biggest spirits buyer in the world,
In the
if
world,
not
yeah.
the biggest. Okay.
Yep.
But again, bring it back to basics. How can we not help? Make it like I was saying, Ungava buys its alcohol out of Ontario. So does Romeo Gin. So does Seventh Heaven. And I could name a bunch of them. Kilomètre Douze, which are good buddies of mine. But what if we made the model profitable for a local producer, right? In BC, 90% of every bottle that you're buying are 100% grain to bottle from BC. So they worked on a model that works out there for them. We're not going on down that route. So what we're asking is keep that business model low cost for you, more business for us on the SAQ market. And the model's kind of dying off right now because people are getting more and more aware of what's happening, where the money's going. And if they started investing again, look at the healthcare in Quebec, look at the education system in Quebec. It needs help. And booze and luxury products can be a great help. But do we still have to give all these huge bonuses to 20 some odd bosses and managers of this level and blah, 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 which are actually trying to kick out the employees to, you know, automation and, you just order online and whatever. Keep the human side of it, lower what you're taking. Don't put your hand as deep in the pocket of a local producer that you can ask from a larger, high quantity distiller, where they're producing the quantities are crazy for Bombay and whatever. And the funny thing is, even if you sat down with these companies, of course they're not going to say it out loud, but they tend to agree with us.
Yeah, I'm sure
So,
they
yeah, so
they see the writing on the wall. You export? Do you distribute across the country? I presume. Yes.
we try, but
Okay.
again, excise taxes, different laws of spirit level taxes across the world will be different from a country to another. So before starting to, break that shell of going all in outside, you need to take care of your backyard, and that's where you
Okay.
start, being like I say in French. It doesn't sound as good in English, but I say a lot of people say, "Well, we're going to give you visibility. We'll put your logo on this. Can you give us this amount of alcohol?" And I'm like, guys, you have to stop asking this for us because we're not about. On n'a pas besoin d'être vu. On a besoin
Hmm.
d'être
They do.
and they do. Yeah. So
Yep.
we being seen is cool, but once I'm seen, if people are not buying the product, how can I
Yeah.
survive?
Well, I have a suggestion for anybody watching, and this is not a commercial pitch, but like most Montrealers at this time of year, I'm getting a little, what is that, log cabin fever,
Yeah.
all alone here on the East End and not a lot to do. And when we were working together with the Alouettes and then Champlain College and a couple of other projects, I got a tour of your facility, and it's really beautiful.
Yeah.
It just all that glass, and the neat thing about it is you can see the whole place right through. You can see the stills and stuff. But my
Yeah.
favorite part, and that's what really attracted me to you in the first place when you came in studio, is I had no clue all the different kinds of ingredients that you could put into a cocktail,
Oh yeah.
like lavender but any just about any spice, a star seed anise.
Yeah.
Um,
And even more terroir stuff like if I say sweet clover, people don't know what sweet clover is, but essentially it's Quebec's wild vanilla. In French, it's called Mélilo, right? And I mean you have spikenard, which is le poivre des dunes and stuff like that. It's beautiful
Hmm.
botanicals that we know through ancestral knowledge that's gone through all the First Nations community. They've been using these for years and years, and now we've got our forest engineers and chefs and people starting to be interested in these, and you can use them in our local products. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love maple syrup, right? I love it with all of my heart. Maple is a very
But
proud.
it's everywhere. Everything's
Exactly.
maple
But we have
flavored.
stuff. We have
I
stuff
thought I
that
was the
belongs
only
to us.
one. Gizmo, mon cher, je pensais que j'étais le seul qui pense ça comme ça. Il y en a trop. C'est partout, partout,
I just
partout.
yeah, but
Yeah.
I love the
Maple
fact that
flavored wine. I
Yeah.
yeah,
got that's a guy. Anyway,
but
I need a drink.
but the thing I love, and maybe you could come with me sometime, is just to go watch him work because he's that was that the Sorcerer's Apprentice, the Disney cartoon film.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what he looks like because he's got
Yeah.
some oregano here and some flowers there, and a little
Yeah.
bit of bitters here, and for me, a cocktail. Well, basically, I was mainly a martini drinker, a dry martini. It's like
Which
Me
is a
too.
I
Yeah.
beautiful
I
cocktail.
could show the bottle of vodka, the cap of the bottle of vermouth, and say, okay, that's it, we're done.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's
but
it's funny, just what you said there, Era. It's You said a vodka and vermouth, and which is I'm a huge James Bond fan. Has been there since I was a kid, and James Bond has obviously commercialized the vodka martini, shaken not stirred. Martini was created with gin
yes,
and vermouth. That's a martini. Now they're using vodka. A good vodka has hardly no nose to it, hardly no taste, a beautiful texture and a finale. So, from a mixology standpoint, good vodka will bring forth, will carry a cocktail, but won't participate in the olfactory and the tasting side of a cocktail. It just brings a signature roundness and booze, right? But when you start using and switching any vodka-based cocktail with another spirit, suddenly you find that your palate opens up. A Bloody Caesar made with whiskey or gin, beautiful. Uh, a switch a gin and tonic or a vodka soda, throw in some tequila with a piece of lemon, you know,
I'm in.
and a dab of saline solution, and it's like my God, what's happening here, right? It's super cool. It's well balanced. And again, sugar and salt will always carry a little more, right? So the basic trick that I give everybody when I give mixology classes at Circa, because that's something that we offer, apart from visiting the distillery, if people want to go on, cirka.ca, you have tastings and tours. It's really cool. And we have Sean offering those, which is a very colorful colleague of mine. And Isabel, the distiller, she's always there too. She can hop on board, answer questions and stuff. It's fun to do. But when I'm giving my mixology classes, to circle back here, I there's a basic trick which is called simple syrup. And I like to say it's called simple syrup because it's simple to do and simple to remember how to do. It's equal parts of sugar and hot water. You're just diluting your sugar base. So you can use white grain sugar, you could use brown sugar, you could use honey, and you're just diluting it with the equal parts of water and getting a liquid. What's even more fun then is explore. Again, cooking with liquids. Explore. Essai et erreur. You'll try something. It's good. Oh, it didn't work. I don't like it that way. So, say I do a honey-based syrup. So I'm using flower honey. Okay, and I dilute it. A cup of honey with a cup of hot water. Stir away. Once it's liquid, you got your honey syrup. Then I don't know, open your cabinet. That's my basic law. One fresh botanical, one spice from your cabinet. So say I throw in some nutmeg and I don't know, some rosemary, okay? Or thyme. So I have a honey, thyme, and nutmeg syrup. Now, this is really cool to add to gin with grapefruit juice, a dab
Mm.
of lemon juice to spike up the acidity, but your honey's going to round it out in equal parts. You hear me here? And then throw in the egg from the white from an egg. Just separate the yolk from the white part. Throw in the raw egg white in there on ice. Shake it up. Strain no ice, and you'll get this beautiful froth of grapefruit, lemon, honey, nutmeg, thyme with gin, and this beautiful frothy texture. And there you have a beautiful cocktail, right? And you're sipping this, and you're like, "Wow, I made this." And it wasn't that complicated. People are going to go, yeah, but making your syrup, it takes time. Okay, then use it with rum. Then use it on your pancakes. You'll have a honey, nutmeg, thyme syrup.
Time syrup.
Keep it in your fridge. Throw in some olive oil, salt, and pepper. You have a pretty cool vinaigrette for your salad. Your buddy came over and came in late at your house party and brought this cheap white wine that he bought at the dépanneur or the grocery store. Usually we drink it at the end of the evening because it doesn't taste as good. And if it's left by the next day, we usually throw it out or keep it in the fridge to cook, right? So how about you use that cheap wine, throw in your honey syrup, open your fridge, ice that up, throw in whatever juice is hanging around there. Oh, I got some apple juice. Great. And top it off with your soda stream. And you got a pretty funky white sangria with apple and honey and stuff. And it's cool. All right. And that's again mixology. It's all about fun, exploring, essai erreur. You can use that honey syrup to glaze your I don't know your cooking, and you throw that a bit on your pork chops. Why not? Or your sautéed, throw in some lemon juice with your honey syrup and throw it in your sautéed vegetables, and you get this honey, thyme, nutmeg finale in there. But you could switch your nutmeg for whole ground black peppers or whatever. You just explore around that, and it's fun.
Wow, you're an artist.
Yes, he
Thank you for your
is.
time, Gizmo. Merci.
My
Merci
pleasure.
beaucoup, mon ami. C'est
Ça fait
tellement
plaisir.
intéressant.
So
C'est
yeah,
magique.
whoever's watching, please come over, visit us, meet us. We'll be more than happy to have you over at Circa.
Cirka.ca.
Yeah, circa.ca. Yeah,
C-I-R-K-A.ca. C'est ça.
Cirka. It's actually Paul
K-A.
Circa's last name. So
Merci.
thank you
Thank you.
guys for
Thank
having
you
me
so
on,
much.
and hopefully I'll be able to run either you guys or anybody who's watching at the SAQ and just share a good drink.
I look forward to it.
All
À
right.
votre santé.
Salut, mon
Santé tout le
amour.
monde. Merci de boire local. Cheers. All right. Bye bye.